President Trump last night announced that the Board of Peace has reached an agreement for Hamas to disarm in Gaza. They insist that it will take a number of weeks. We should note Hamas themselves have not confirmed that they've agreed to this. Some Israeli officials have already expressed real skepticism. I know you were briefed by the White House last night. Talk to us about what we know.
So the U.S. officials and Board of Peace officials on this phone call, the reporters were much clearer than the president. This isn't an agreement. It's a pathway, a framework. And it's unclear if Hamas is going to agree to this. And then Israel. I mean, look at the timing. You had Bibi Netanyahu in the Oval Office. If Bibi and Israel was going to agree to this, you would do it with the president at his side. They're not going to agree to it when we push them with questions, the reporters on the phone. There's no framework for when Israeli forces will withdraw. And even the speakers from the administration were honest about it. It's a series of steps. So this, will come together. Look, I hope this magically works. Where Hamas is going to agree to completely disarm. They haven't done this for decades. They carried out this horrific attack on October 7th. And I just back to basic competence. And I can't resist to the nerdy factoid. Again, a Saudi-led naval coalition is going to solve this disastrous war in the Middle East. Saudi Arabia is not one of the world's leading naval powers. I checked. They have 16 ships. They're pretty small frigates. 8 of the 16 are more than 40 years old. That makes them obsolete. So yet again, it's just sort of talking points and strategies and policies that just don't make sense, whether we're talking about tariffs and inflation, this war of choice in Iran. Things just keep getting worse, it seems, for the president.
Yeah. I think the White House would probably be pleased, though, the Saudis getting engaged finally. They've been reluctant at the beginning to do this. And Jim Vandehei, it's interesting, the Associated Press just reporting this morning that a Hamas official has actually confirmed that they are all in on this agreement, that they're going along with it. I think the real question, if you talk to the people that are inside and negotiating this deal, they say the Israelis are going to go along with it, but obviously very nervous right now, and very nervous for domestic political reasons. They don't want to be seen as retreating from Gaza or going along with Hamas. So that is going to be, with the AP reporting, Hamas officials now said we're in. That's the next step. And I think that's going to be the biggest step to see if Netanyahu's government will come forward and do the same.
Yeah, I don't think Hamas are like men of great trust and faith, so them saying that they're going to back it, I don't know how much credibility we should put into that. It'd be great if they can resolve this. This is one of the hardest things to resolve on the planet, so God bless them if they can. I think it's obviously a hell of a lot more complicated than what they're talking about. I think the bigger issue is we have to come to grips with there might not be a way out of Iran. I don't see any incentive whatsoever for the Iranians to give on anything ever. If they're reading our newspapers, they now know, and they are reading them, they know that we've depleted a big chunk of our missiles and of the military equipment that they need. They know that Donald Trump doesn't want to be there. They've had their economy blown to smithereens. They got nothing else to lose. So they have every incentive to hold on to that straight like it's a nuclear weapon, because it is their strength now. And I have not heard a plausible path from any official around Trump in months that paints a picture of how we ever get out of this big hot mess. And it was a mess of our own making, and it was a mess where the president of the United States was warned by his vice president and by a lot of people around the table that this was the exact outcome that you were going to have. So when people are mad, they probably should be mad. When people think that this is not going to change, they should probably think that, because there's not a clear path. And when there's not a clear path, you're going to continue to have high gas prices. You're going to continue to have instability in the Middle East. When you have those two things, you're going to continue to have an economy that can't do anything like Howard Lutnick talked about in December.
Yeah, Richard Haass, I said yesterday or the day before, this is one of the first wars, one of the first crises in my adult lifetime. 32 years being in Congress and covering this stuff in news, that I've seen an issue like this large that seems so intractable. There are no good answers. And the leverage right now that the Iranians have are twofold. One, they know we are not going to put boots on the ground, that we can only shoot from the sky. And because, they know that because there's not the will to do that in America. Most Americans don't even want to be over there, let alone putting boots on the ground. But that is a known by the Iranians, that the Americans almost certainly will not put boots on the ground. So why do we have to do anything more than what we're doing right now? And number two, Donald Trump has an election coming up in November that he cares very much about. And they're thinking this is the exact position we had Jimmy Carter in 1980 when he was running against Ronald Reagan. It's extraordinary leverage for the Iranians. And given those two realities, I remain with Jim. I don't see a way out of this unless it's a way where it's an abject surrender to the Iranians, and I don't see Donald Trump doing that.
I think you're probably right. The Iranians have got enough of an economic cushion, in part because we allowed them to sell some oil at various times during this crisis, which was a colossal mistake. The only real leverage on them is their economy. And they're feeling some economic pressure, obviously not enough. So this will probably stretch on for some time, and we can do whatever we want militarily, but it's not going to turn them around. On the other issue, by the way, just very quickly, I was involved in Northern Ireland, Joe, with the whole idea of decommissioning, getting the IRA and the other militias to give up their weapons. This is not going to happen. Hamas can give up a couple of rifles and say they're giving up equipment, but the idea that they're going to completely disarm and then the Israelis are going to completely withdraw from Gaza, if you believe in that, that's fairy tale stuff. So the administration is way
Richard,
forward in its
I understand that, Richard. I understand that, but a lot of people were saying that about Northern Ireland. The IRA was never going to give up their weapons. Even 25, 26, 27 years later, still seems like a miracle that they did.
Big difference, though, which was in Northern Ireland, the IRA was given a diplomatic path. There is no diplomatic path that has seriously been put forward to Palestinians in either Gaza or in the West Bank. Plus, the agenda of Hamas is far more radical than the agenda of Sinn Féin ever was. Hamas still doesn't accept a Jewish state. So again, I just think the situations are sufficiently different that I just don't see it happen. But more than anything, Israel has to offer an alternative politically and diplomatically, so Palestinians are someone to turn to other than people who think they can kill their way to a Palestinian state. Israel has not done that. This is the work of a generation.